Hey, business building warrior. This is Jim, another episode of Silent Sales Machine Radio. Thanks for joining us today. I've got a guest who we'll bring on the line in just a moment. His name's John Ludlow. He comes from the concert promotion, concert t-shirt arena. That's his background. That's what he's done with much of his life the past several years. But with so many industries, COVID changed things. And while his old businesses are kind of starting to come back online and starting to thrive again. And it's specifically, interesting enough, he's been in the Christian music industry, which I found fascinating because I'm a huge fan of several Christian music artists that you may have heard of if you're in that arena. That's who he works with, some of the big names that you've heard. But that business, definitely took a hit. It definitely slowed down with COVID. He needed something else. And he talks through today how he found our community, how he got started. He jumped into the Proven Amazon course, which you hear us talk about so much, provenamazoncourse.com. He was watching the videos and learning the systems, starting to play around. He sold about $4,000 worth of stuff and he was excited. Then he jumped into our coaching program and things really took off. He talks about that as well today. By the way, there's links to everything that we talk about on this episode. Proven Amazon course, the coaching program, our free Facebook group, silentjim.com is the only link you'll ever need. It's all there. You can go jump in and check these things out. But as we had our conversation today, he's at the point now where, as we're wrapping up 2021, as I'm recording this episode for you today, we're towards the end of 2021, and he's looking at about $350,000 for the past year. And it's been a part-time thing for him. That's how much he's sold. He shares his margins and his ROI and all of that on the episode as well today with us, of course. But he's looking at $1 million next year. That's his goal. It's a small team. It's just been one part-time shopper that's worked with him a little bit as he's gotten to these numbers. But next year, he hopes to expand his team, expand his business. And as you've heard so many other sellers say on this program, the challenge for him is not finding products to sell. It's just not. Once you understand the system that we teach, the challenge is building a system, getting the stuff sent in, sending in more as it sells, getting it prepped, getting it from wherever it is you're buying it onto Amazon's platform or ready to sell on Amazon. That's the challenge, because just finding enough time to do it all. Again, a busy guy. He's on the road a lot. He's got basically another full-time gig. So this is something that he's tried to squeeze into his life, and it's going extremely well so far. So we loved this interview. I loved hanging out with him. I hope you enjoy this as much as I did. Just another great example of the kind of really cool people that have gravitated to the community, to the culture that we've built here. People using the internet creatively to launch and grow incredible businesses that get them home with their families. Another homeschool family, for example, this time, someone that's his wife is homeschooling their kids, and she's an integral part of his business as well, which he shares today. Just a really good time hanging out with somebody who's doing life and business in an interesting, fun way that I think you're going to find very motivational and informative. So with that introduction, let's jump over and meet Mr. John Ludlow. So John, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jim, good to meet you. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Great to meet you as well. Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. Looking forward to get to know you a little bit today. I want to jump right into your story, man. Take the microphone. Let's go.
Sure. Yeah. Well, what a journey. I've been in concert tour merchandising for 21 years. So I've sold souvenirs at shows since basically 2000. I started cleaning a warehouse for my first boss in 98 while I was down in Nashville trying to be a rock star, and then tried to make some extra money while I was doing that. I'm actually Canadian, so my visa expired, so I moved back to Canada. And she was like, "Hey, you did a great job cleaning the warehouse. I've got this Canadian artist going across Canada. Do you want to do merchandise full time?" And I was like, "Hey, I'm stuck here. I'll do anything, especially if it's related to touring." Because I was, I'd played drums doing some stuff in the States, played a few shows here and there with an artist. And then I did a few shows across Canada doing drums as well. And then was kind of like, what do I do next? And so she called and she's like, "Hey, the 6 weeks tour, you want to go do it?" And I was like, "Oh, I'd love to." So I did it. She met me in Victoria, BC. I toured right across Canada selling t-shirts. And I was like, man, this was kind of like 75% of my dreams, is doing, the buses, the hotels and the shows and supporting. And I found out that I actually figured out I'm actually a support person rather than a in front of the camera or in front of on the stage person. So it was kind of a turning point in my life of realizing I'm more of a support person. So after that, worked my way back down to Nashville, getting a visa and getting legal again, and did t-shirts right up until the pandemic, and still do it. But started doing it with different companies. I did it on my own, had my own company starting in '04 through '09. And then I sold my company to a record label because they were looking to find out, I was at a growth spot of like a fork on the road. Either I shut it down, do something different. I would need to do, invest in figure out a restructuring of it all, or partner with somebody to make it bigger. So the record label just happened to, the guy from there, he was like, hey, we're trying to figure out different revenue streams because record sales aren't as, robust as they used to be.
Sure.
So
that whole industry really changed, didn't it?
Oh, massively.
Music
and that was right
distributed,
about the time.
Music was pretty easy to get your hands on. So artists had to find other ways to monetize. It sounds like you felt the brunt of that whole shift of that industry.
And that's where it was a blessing. Because I didn't, people always like, how did you get started in merchandise? And I was like, well, I always joke. I was like, I lost a bet. But most times, you're like, I want to do this. And it's like, I never woke up in the morning and be like, oh, my life will be complete if I could just sell t-shirts,
Sure.
So it's just the journey and where the journey took me. And I was just like, I'm just going to hang on for the ride and see where it takes me. But here we are 21 years later. And, it's been a massive part of my life and been blessed. But so, having that, like as you said, as the industry's they were looking for different revenue streams, like YouTube, Spotify, iTunes were all kind of making this massive shift in the record label business. They were the record sales business. They were looking to merchandise. They were looking to films. They were looking to publishing, more or less to, obviously to create new revenue streams. So t-shirts was the one. A lot of them did 360 deals where they basically just charged them, a percentage of their sales. But the one label I partnered with was actually like, let's provide them a service so we can actually give them something, give them, being the artist, in return. So that's where they brought me in. We started a merchandise division under this one record label. So 11 years later, and then, pandemic hits. So
right.
as for a lot of people, it changed a lot of people's lives, touring just came to a screeching halt. We actually had some parts changing just right pre-pandemic anyways, but then a bigger shift was that I was supposed to move into another part of the corporate structure, but they just obviously didn't have the financial capacity to move me into that. So that was kind of like a 45-day window that left me with to figure out for me to just figure it out. Like, what do I do? So the first thing right before we closed, I had a buddy call me and he's like, hey man, have you ever heard of, the selling on Amazon? There's this great podcast, this great community. It's not like you don't, dole out $1,000. You can just get in and watch videos. And I was like, oh, check it out. So I got on, started watching the videos, and I really it wasn't really connecting with me, but I was soaking in more than I realized. So at that point, I started my own company. I was like, you know what? Let's start a company. I'll start my company again, get that going. A few clients were, kind enough to be like, hey, wherever you go, we'll go, as far as the t-shirt side. So they jumped on board really quick, and it was really honoring because I was like, wow. I mean, I guess that's what happens when it is what happens when you pour into somebody and invest in somebody so much, they just follow you around. They don't care what company you're with. They're just like, hey, wherever you go, we'll go.
That's such a great point. Yeah. The relationships, the stability that can bring. It's more stable than a product or a brand or the business model that you're in. Those relationships, those people who, I love what you just said, kind of follow you wherever you go.
It
and
really
strategically and intentionally pursuing those kind of relationships wherever you're planted. That is a great way to build stability. Because when disaster strikes, those are the people you reach out to and say, hey, here's where I'm at now. What do you got? What do you got going on? Maybe I could, help solve some problems that you're facing right now. And you've got those people that you can lean on. That's beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were the people that really got me kind of through the pre-pandemic, or like, the initial brunt of it all. Cause, I was blessed financially. It was really cool to see how all our needs were met. I was, my thing is I go right to fear, and it's like, are we going to lose our house? My wife's like, we're going to be okay. So she was a huge rock in that time of all this big cyclone of change, but those clients were so great because they, in the Christian music, most of my clients are Christian music clients, and they've made these really cool adjustments. Like they went in and did all the drive-in theater shows. So they were super instrumental in keeping the industry moving, keeping some of the artists going, because they were stagnant. They're like, hey, we're going crazy. We still need to do our shows. Like it's how we live. It's what we do. And income wise too, I'm sure they needed to keep doing. So that was cool. So kind of linking both stories, kind of, between connecting with your community and keeping my, how my journey went. Just as we closed the company in August of 2020, I started my own that month, did a fall tour going around all the drive-in theater tours, drive-in theaters doing tours out in the lawn. And, they set up the stage in front of the screens. I was watching the videos while I was on the bus and touring, and I was just like, man, this looks cool. This is really cool. And it was really cool. As I was touring, the production manager, his brother-in-law or brother, I think it was, actually went through a similar situation where he's a 6-figure job and lost it. And this was, a few years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago. And he went and found a way, and he found his niche on Amazon. He's like, man, he's already replaced his income. He's so much happier, and he's found this great thing. And I was like, man, 2 people have told me this. Maybe I should really dig into it. So I think it was Deborah in your office said, hey, when your tour is done, I'll follow up. We'll check in with you after. And so that's when I was introduced to the coaching program. Because I told her, she's like, how's the videos? She asked how the videos were going. I was like, well, I don't really learn as well with videos. I'm more of a, one-on-one, if you just show me, it'll be so much easier for me.
You understand the value of the relationships and the conversation.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. It continues with the more of the relational side of things. Like it's just how I'm wired. My wife, she could read. She was awesome when we first started we had our first company. She can read through anything, digest it. Like she incorporated us because the lawyer, our accountant was like, so where's your legal fees? And I was like, we just signed up ourselves. My wife did it. So I'm just the opposite. I'm more of the logistical guy. I'm the thinker of, like, hey, how can we get from A to B? So we did that. Picking up the story, Deborah, it's like, hey, maybe you're a coaching student. Maybe you should look into the coaching program. And so that was my introduction. And then once I started my first meeting with Rich Potter was just like, it was literally like a light switch went on. It made all the content I had kind of absorbed from the videos make sense. Like it just connected it all. And I was just like, this is amazing. So I just had fun from minute one. Like this was like, it really took a lot of my previous strengths and it just kind of, it attached them to something tangible, which was so fun. So,
I got you. Well, you've given me a lot of directions we could go so far. I'm loving this story. So let me help connect a few dots for me and for the listeners too. So you're a coaching student now, which I wasn't aware of. That's awesome.
Oh, okay.
So when did you come into our coaching program? Give me a point of reference.
It's actually been a year. So
you're a year in.
I guess I signed up. Yeah. So I signed up in November of last year.
Yeah. So you've got a full year under your belt at this point.
Full year. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
and help me connect some dots here too. The merchandising, the connections you have there from the music industry, and I do want to find out a little bit more about that as well. I want to ask you a couple questions about that industry in particular, because we've got some ties in our community as well that you may not be aware of. I'm not sure yet with the whole music industry. It seems to come up a lot around here.
I don't. Okay.
But how did those relationships translate over into success? Some of those partnerships specifically on your Amazon business. I mean, are you sourcing products from connections that you had before? Has that helped you somehow, or is this a completely new direction for you?
Well, it's two separate. I basically have two separate companies at this point. One company, but with two separate avenues, I guess. I thought at the beginning, I was like, maybe this is something where I can get their stuff and get it online and actually looked into it, and it's like, no, that's not it. And then after talking to Rich, he's like, no, go this way and start this way.
Gotcha.
Get your foundation built. And I did that, and I was like, wow, so that's its own little thing. And then, so what I've done now is, before I was just only handling the logistical side, so warehousing and touring, and the actual selling on the road. I wasn't handling the manufacturing side of the merchandise itself. So what happened was, again, more relationships came out of the blue. Two gentlemen that I'd partnered with in previous, jobs and tours came up to me like, hey, I heard you're on your own now. Do you want us to be your like merchandise production team? And then we'll kind of work out a partnership on that. And so with one of them, I work on a pretty massive tour. And then the other one, they help me, do the production side, for t-shirts and manufacturing like that. So
I got you. Well, I'm just wondering what advantages, if any, from that previous circle, that network and the connections you had, has that helped you in your Amazon business in some ways? Are there,
not yet. Yeah.
If they're kind of two separate worlds for you?
They really are. And I guess right now is I do see a little hope in the production side, having access to, making promotional goods, and maybe finding some private label stuff eventually. But yeah, it's I haven't seen a tie yet. All that to answer your question. Yeah.
I got you. Yeah. Well, those relationships do eventually pay off very well. And I want to get into your Amazon business a little bit here too, but just bear with me for a moment as the listeners too, because we've got some pretty well recognized in the music industry on our team. Nathan Bailey, he's a good guitarist himself. He's our coaching director, but his warehouse manager who works for us, been working with us for years, is Travis. What's his last name? Montgomery, I think. But really well known. He's like a metal. He's like a heavy metal. They got like the top iTunes metal album right now. I mean, like he is.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's a serious musician. But as you know, there's very few people actually making really good money in the music industry. It's a it's a tough industry.
It is.
And then Wampler Pedals. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, but another guy that's come out of our community as a guitarist. If you were a guitar player, you probably would recognize him. That he's kind of got a Cadillac brand of guitar pedals now. Another guy kind of came up through our group, and who was it? Some of the bigger country music guys, names you'd recognize. All of us would use his stuff.
Okay.
And but I'm curious what artists you've worked with too, because you mentioned tour. I mean, there's not that many people who are doing tours. Might be some people we recognize. Anyone that do a little name dropping on us?
Well, yeah. Well, right now, my clients are Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant, Stephen Curtis Chapman, and then the big tour we're ready to work on is Winter Jam is the big one that's going out in January. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've been a Michael W. Smith fan since the mid '80s. Huge fan.
Oh, that's awesome.
Huge.
Yeah.
Fan. Been to many of his concerts and have a lot of the memorabilia. When they did their Christmas tour here last year, I think I was in the fourth row when they came to Indianapolis. So
awesome.
Throwing the snowballs up there.
That's exactly it. We just actually unloaded all the trailers yesterday from all the Christmas runs. So that's
they did it last year and again this year.
Both.
Yeah. I did it last year, but the year before. But that's really awesome. Cool. I could nerd out for a while on that. I mean, I was raised on Amy Grant. I was part of that. That disappointed in the late '80s. Like, oh no, Amy had a beer company as a sponsor? Is she still a Christian artist? Part of that whole, it was, and so I go way back with Christian music, the '80s and the '90s. So yeah, we could nerd out about that for a long time, man.
Yeah.
But let's get over to Amazon for the listeners' sake. I would have more fun staying there for a while. But and there are a lot of there's a lot of people in that arena in our community as well too. I'm sure you might have some people hit you up with some questions. But let's talk Amazon, man. Let's talk. So you got into coaching. You got Rich as your coach. Pick you up.
Well, it was just, Rich, obviously the success speaks for itself. So I was like so honored to have him as my coach. And once we got going, I was having my company set up, and that was really the cool how it all played out. Like having all the tools. Really, the only thing I needed to sign up for was the reseller account, because I never had a product, never had to purchase the product. I was always kind of like the service that I just received the product from the artist, and then I take it out and sell it. So this was kind of a new idea. I was like, so I have to front all this money. So obviously our companies had done it before. So, we always fronted the money for the t-shirts, but so it was just a new adventure. I was like, let's try it. So I'd been blessed to, I had kept a credit card open from the previous time I had my company. So I had a massive credit card ready to go, and I was like, let's go. So I literally just started, going through and was searching, and I've seen many comments on here. It's like the number of items out there is so prevalent. It's just finding the time to get it all done, and then right now the biggest challenge for me is just the infrastructure, getting the right people in the right place. But yeah, once I started coaching, it was game on. Like it just like all the wires connected. And then each week Rich would just kind of show me the next step, and it's like, oh my goodness. And then I'm still overwhelmed at the how many levels. I'm still obviously only a year in and on the bottom floor. But it is overwhelming sometimes in a good way, a positive way, of how much opportunity is out there, ready to be just taken in.
So talk us specifically through what model you're using and how you're finding product, and talk us through some details.
Yeah. So Rich, his main one was just kind of the reverse searching, he's like, go this way. And I sometimes, the way my brain works is I find something and then see if it's available, either on Amazon or find it on Amazon, and then trying to find a source for it. But I think I'm about 90% online arbitrage, and then the times I can't find it online, I'll just do I'm blessed to be in a major city where there's about, 5 or 6 of major retailers. You just kind of make the cycle around, and I don't have shoppers yet. I'm still so new. I've had a part-time guy prepping since January. So, I really just kind of feel new to it, after I hear podcasts and interviews and even questions online. I'm like, man, I'm not there, I'm not even branded yet, and, I don't have my own brand, but it's amazing, even just in the online arbitrage, how much, I've been able to do just in that model. So
you're basically a one-man show, a little bit of a part-time shopper, doing online arbitrage, mainly shopping online, looking for replens based on the strategies we teach, right?
Yeah.
So you're using Keepa as your main tool, right? Okay.
Using Keepa, check Keepa, do I've forgotten all the names of all of them.
RevSeller, maybe?
Yeah, RevSeller. It was really fascinating to have, that was another part of the equation that Rich helped me too, is like when you get the right tools in place too, finding the right margins, finding your ROIs, and and healthy margins to have on your product. So I was like, oh, that's exactly what I needed, So that makes more sense. And it was just great to have someone explain it to me and use all the show me all the tools. And that's the thing I loved about the coaching programs. It felt like it was a fast track, and I'm really blown away by the people that can just come in and, digest all the videos and put it together themselves. But again, it wasn't for me. So the coaching program was just, for me, it was
different learning styles. Yeah, for sure.
Just as my style. Yeah.
Yeah. But being able to build that relationship with a coach is invaluable, and someone to kind of step you through and be there, be available. Rich has really grown into one of the premier leaders in our community, creating great content. And, he's building some incredible proven wholesale sourcing.com, that new content. Did you happen to get through that yet?
Yeah, he connected with me. He connected me with that the other day. And that's the thing. The content is so that's another part. I'm just like, I would almost need a whole month just to dig through content. So as I build my structure, foundation, and getting the right people in the right places, get the concert merchandise side covered. That's one of my goals too, as I build, is to find me time. To dig into a lot of that content, because I'm using SoStock and I'm using some of those other programs, and even just the content that they're sending me, I'm just like, oh my goodness, I'd just love to sit for like hours and dig through it
and learn. Well, you'll never get to the point where you feel like you know everything. The content race is one that you'll never win. It's more of just being disciplined enough to carve out some time, at least weekly, if not half an hour to an hour daily, of just, I'm going to learn new things. I'm going to stretch myself a little bit and dive into some of this. But that ocean of content is actually growing faster than any of us can consume it. And I think maybe that's part of the value that we provide around here, John, is we've got a team of about 100 of us, the leaders, the coaches, content creators, those of us, the administrators of the Facebook group, that we're going through new stuff constantly as a group. And I think as a group, we kind of recognize, okay, this is good. This is scalable. This is something we need to test and maybe roll out to everybody. And for every 10 to 20 ideas that come along, one of them is something that we end up rolling down to the community. So we act as that filter almost.
Love it.
But we're still even running it through that filter, coming up with so many great, interesting new ways just on Amazon to grow and to improve your business. But plenty of people right where you are, I'm not trying to push you forward, out of where you're at now. There's plenty of people with 7-figure businesses doing just what you've described, right? Pulling stuff off shelves,
Right.
either virtually online or going into retail stores and hustling, husband and wife
Exactly.
teams doing 7 figures with that model.
Yeah.
So you've seen what's possible. Well, let's talk about some of the, before we do that, I want to talk about some of the specific products, the categories that you're excited about. People like to hear those details. And then I'm going to hear some numbers if you're okay with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Category wise, I've taken your inch deep, mile wide theory or saying to heart. And I actually share that with people all day long. And they're like, man, that's really wise. And I was like, yeah, it seems so obvious when you hear it, but when you put it into practice, it was just so awesome to be able to do that. So grocery, I'm actually I'm all over. So I've got toys, groceries, you name it, really, like hardware. I'm trying to think of some of the others. It seems like groceries kind of, moved ahead a little bit. But I was one of those people. It's like, how do I get ungated in this? How do I get ungated in that? Next thing you know, when you start plowing through and you're doing it, next thing you're just automatically ungated. Everything you end up testing or finding is ungated. So
the doors just fly open.
It really is, and it's
It'll say, wait, you need permission to sell this. Do you want to ask for permission? Click. Yeah. Okay, you've been approved. And off we go. Right. It's a great feeling. It just kind of, the dominoes just start kind of falling. And once you get rolling, I even encourage people, sell 20 things, break even, just to get the momentum going. And those ungatings just kind of, those gates just fall open for you and you're off to the races pretty fast.
So true. Yeah. And honestly, to get the moving part was the big thing for me. I still remember me walking into a grocery store and this was pre-Rich, like pre-coaching. And I was just trying to make my body do it, like get myself out the door. I went in a grocery store. I took my Seller Central app and I was like scanning things. And it's like, and my whole mindset obviously wasn't in the right place as far as what, the way the process flowed. But the fact that I did it, and I still have those items sitting in my storage unit, I was just like, they're kind of like trophies for me of like, you did it. You just went out and moved forward. You took a step forward, and that was encouraging to me, because sometimes I get a little, passive and just like, I think about it. It's like, well, I wonder what, maybe like analysis paralysis and, some of the other terms that your folks are using on, as far as just overthinking. And it was just a good day to just go out and be like, I bought some stuff. It wasn't the right stuff, but, and then I was trying to, create a listing. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like taking pictures, thinking it was more like a Facebook marketplace, but obviously, it wasn't quite the way it went, as I dug into it. But, again, just taking one step forward, just be like, well, if I try it, I might actually stumble on something,
Yeah. I love that, John. I think if given the choice for a new seller, if your two choices are sit at home and just study till you feel like you got it, or get out there and grab something and sell it for a loss. The choice between those two options, I would say go the path that you went down. Just get out there.
Absolutely.
Sell something for a loss. And you're scanning barcodes. We don't recommend that. You're grabbing items that aren't proven. We don't recommend that. You're grabbing stuff that everyone else is trying to sell and there's no money. You're looking for items instead of, you're looking for products instead of looking for ASINs. We teach you to look for ASINs. It's a very important switch you have to flip in your brain, right? And it makes sense once you're on the other side of that fence. But when you're first starting, you think you're looking for hot products. That's not the game. But you're better off getting out there, making some of those mistakes, learning the process. That journey from 0 to 1 sale is very important. Even if you lose money, so important.
Yeah.
And then it's like kind of like riding a bike. And then we show you where the good trails are. It's like learn to ride your bike. Okay, now let's go show you how this thing works. And it doesn't take that long. How long would you say it took you total study time to kind of absorb the concept of what it is that we do now with replens?
Oh, well, I mean, I was watching those videos for the month of September. I mean, maybe even, I don't even know how much time I spent on the videos over those, those few weeks of touring. But when, I can't remember the first day I met with Rich, but when I got with Rich, I mean, I was at $4,000. I mean, granted, I started December of last year, so starting in the fourth quarter is probably a little help. But I was like, you know what? If I throw my first shipment out, if I start selling by January 1st, fine. But I ended up doing $4,000 in that first month of December, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy.
There's something here.
Yeah, so it was a quick turnover. All that to say, I don't remember all the timeline of all the studying and all the the how many meetings I had with Rich, but I do remember that December looking at Seller Central and being like, my goodness, like it's moving faster than I expected, and it works. Yeah, the fact that I did $4,000 that first month, it still blows my mind.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about numbers. Here we are closing in on the end of the year as we're recording this. So we've got a good timeline to look at of, how to go. How was 2021 for you?
So 21 was great. So I was increasing every month. I think my highest month was 30, close to 37, almost 40. I was just like, if I can just get to 40. And then there's a direct correlation to the touring industry cranking back up to my numbers starting to kind of take a little bit of a hit, because obviously I hit the ceiling as far as how much work I could do. And then that's where I'm just like, okay, what does infrastructure look like? What does personnel look like? And then I had my part-time guy quit on me in October and found a new job, full-time job, which was so cool for him. But I was traveling on the road in October doing a tour at the same time. So it was like three different scenarios, him quitting, me being on the road, and then Amazon shrinking the FBA inventory right at that time. Kind of all made it because I had bumped up against the ceiling of my capacity for my storage in October. Right. And then now obviously it's starting to crank back up. I've already noticed I'm almost back to full strength of when they started to turn to shrink the storage limits. But yeah. And so 340, I think 342 was the year to date as far as my first shipment.
342. So with quite a bit of December left ahead of us still, so you probably had 345, maybe 350 for the year, approximately.
Yeah. And
so
I'll probably get that because the last few days have been pretty, we've been really aggressive in shipping, and Amazon's been great about getting our shipments in within a week or so. It's been really cool. So some of the stuff which I thought, maybe we'll hit again, same idea. Maybe we'll hit in January. They got it in fast. Next thing you know, we have a boost in sales because that shipment hit. So
it's how much time do you have to find stuff and ship stuff in is the challenge. Not finding product, but just building a system. That's a theme so much lately. Past few months. So many of our podcast guests, our success story students, have just said the same thing. Finding the product's not the challenge. It's finding the time, finding the people.
It is
to go grab this stuff and send it in, and then it's money.
Exactly.
You just got to build that system. What's your net margins approximately, if you know offhand?
Yeah, margins have been obviously the hard costs of subscriptions and stuff are less impacted when you get into higher grosses, but I think it's anywhere from I've had 10% to the highest was 17%, I think, on 1 month. So and I think the ROI was, if I remember correctly, I think it was somewhere in the 30s or 40s, if I'm not, that's just from memory. So
gotcha.
Some better months, obviously, and just some testing. And I did some clearing out already, some things that are just sitting on the shelves for, 90 days or more. And I was like, okay, well, that one didn't work. Let's get those 6 units out. They didn't work. So
right. Yeah. And I know this is would you say this is a part-time thing for you? Or I mean, how does this, put your effort on a pie chart for a second? Are you more in the music industry and the touring, or are you more on this side, or is it kind of split?
Well, I'm trying to, put them both at 100%. And I guess that's part of the challenge I'm facing. As of right now, I guess over time, if you had to kind of graph it out, it was like probably at the beginning of the year, obviously with no touring, it was 90-10, and now it was 50-50. And I'm probably in like 60 to the music business, 40 to Amazon now at this point. But still have my part-time guy prepping, and we're shipping, and so we're trying to get at least one shipment out a week. That's our goal. So to keep it moving. So, and it's really great. The one thing that has been great about the both sides is that, the t-shirt side helps fund the other one, just as far as having some, moving some cash flow. And that's been great too. So, yeah.
Yeah. You've got that multiple stream thing rolling. Well, I got to ask for my wife. Her favorite band is Mercy Me. Do you do any work with them by any chance?
Oh, we used to. Yeah. They used to
Did you?
have that tour, the Rock and Worship Roadshow. And
Yeah.
that was one of their tours. And we used to do that back in the day. And yeah,
You did
great
their
dudes.
merch,
Yeah.
huh?
I did for a little bit. They used an in-house guy for a lot of years and they still do now. But that's the thing. There's so many, different versions of merchandise companies, either the
Sure.
in-house guy,
Yeah.
cousin Bob, might be the
Yeah.
guy, or, the full service merchandise company that does e-commerce production and, road service as
Yeah, it
well.
just
So
popped in my head, not to
yeah.
throw us too off track, but I was thinking
No, you're
if
good.
she finds
Yeah.
out I'm working with a merch guy, I better ask.
Yeah.
She's gonna love
Yeah.
that. But well, what else do you want to talk about as far as your business goes? I think you've given us some great information, and kudos to you on one thing I meant to say earlier when you're talking, man. It sounds like you've got an amazing better half, your wife, man, keeping things
Oh,
steady and
trust me.
just
Yes.
sounds like
Yeah.
she's pretty smart, pretty sharp. You married up, as did I,
She
man.
I am so blessed. She's setting me. I'm like no tech wizard, and she's setting me up with a camera and her computer and everything. And that's why I was like, "Are we? Is this going to work? Where's the volume?" So
She's like the
she
tech,
runs.
the
Yeah,
legal, the counselor.
yeah.
It's
Oh,
great, man.
yeah.
Sounds amazing.
She has done amazing things, but especially the first time we had our business. Again, I'm the doer. That's my personality. Like you show me what to do, I'll do it. I'll get it done. You give me a checklist, we'll work it down the list, you check it off. But she's so creative. She's so techie, and she actually runs a ministry with her best friend as well as homeschooling. So,
Oh, you guys homeschool too.
just,
That's beautiful,
yeah,
man.
we homeschool too.
What's her
Yeah.
ministry?
So,
Give us a little insight.
it's her ministry is like inner healing, I guess would be kind of a good way to summarize it. So basically connecting your heart to your head. Sometimes your heart knows, like, you can go to church on Sunday and hear a sermon and hear all these amazing truths, but really getting it down into your heart to where you believe it
Yeah.
is kind of the foundation of her ministry. So
That's
yeah.
as one of my mentors says, the longest 18 inches you'll ever travel.
Yes.
From the head
as
to
I've
the
found,
heart.
yes.
It's one thing to know it. It's another thing to actually live your life out as if it's real. And
Exactly.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. And we teach that a lot.
Yeah.
The place we apply that a lot is with money and understanding business. Because one of the things we see in our culture is success is seen as a negative, lacking virtue. Business success is like, oh, well, you settled for that. The virtuous people, however, over here doing this. But business success, so that message is very prevalent in our culture, to the point where you have to really fight against it and have to challenge yourself to see what you're doing as serving others well and profiting for doing it. That is a virtuous activity. And it's one thing to understand it, but to actually believe it in your heart and know that, man, I'm serving others well with the work I'm doing. I'm serving God and others well and making a profit. That's all virtuous. That's one of those you got to get from your head to your heart. And there's many examples of that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't,
sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say there are so many hurdles that we have to overcome emotionally from our own, past traumas or whatever. That can be, and for me, just working through those was a huge thing. And I've done a lot of personal work in the last 6 years and just trying to figure out how to make sure those things don't become my stumbling blocks, because they have been and they still do sometimes. And it's just being aware of, like, what is that? Noticing it, acknowledging it, and then making sure it doesn't stop me from, doing what I need to do next to be a successful business owner.
Yeah.
So
the biggest hurdle most of us face is the person in the mirror. It really is.
Tell you what,
on a lot of these issues. It's hard issues. It's mindset issues. It's, what are you feeding yourself? What are you fueling yourself? It's self-sabotage. Going back to the example I was just using, even, the risk, if you don't see your business activity as virtuous, as just as virtuous as, say, volunteering at a soup kitchen or whatever those other, cliche virtuous things are that we do. If you don't see it as equally virtuous, then you're going to self-sabotage yourself, and kind of be inner turmoil plays out in the way that you live your life, and you're going to inconvenience yourself and misplace things. And like, my phone was just here. You're constantly undercutting your own efforts because you don't see the virtue in it. It's the same thing child psychologists tell us. If there's a kid who's kind of always hurting themselves, like klutzy, quite often, they're getting away with things that they know they shouldn't be getting away with, and they haven't been caught. And it's kind of playing itself out in this, like, I deserve to be punished. I know I do, but I shouldn't be getting away with it, but I am. You, you kind of got to dig in. Is there a moral issue there sometimes? Sometimes klutzy kids are dealing with moral issues. Not all the time. Some kids are just not
Right.
coordinated, but just that psychology. I love studying that sort of thing. The way we undermine and self-sabotage is probably the best way to say it. That as business leaders and as people trying to grow a business, you got to be aware of those things. It's crucial.
Absolutely. It really is. And I've always loved how you guys say, what's your why? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like the purpose, kind of like how you said, like sometimes I do feel that guilt of like, I'm making money, but there's homeless people out there, but I'm not there serving them food that day, like you said, in the soup kitchen, you know, but what's our why? Like the why has it can grow too. It can have branches. Like the main why is like, hey, I want to provide my family, but then, hey, can I provide for the homeless? Can I provide for, something else, or can I, whatever, but it's just that why is so important. And that's something I have to learn to focus on too. Cause sometimes my why I get a little distracted from it. And so, I need to really hone in on that and be like, no, this is why I'm doing it today. I don't feel like doing it, but this is why I'm doing it. So
yeah. And
yeah,
it's a fun topic. We could spend a lot of time on it. I'm tempted to do so, but again, with so many of the things that you and I have talked about today, I'm going to try to stay disciplined because I'm finding our conversation. I think if it was just us having dinner, we'd go for about 3 hours off into something that's very interesting for us, but maybe not for the listeners. But
no, true. Yep.
Let's go here next. I told you before we started recording, I'd give you the chance if there's anything that you wanted to share with the community, maybe something we haven't hit yet, some lessons you've learned along the way, or some encouragement. Just what's on your list? What else is on your mind? Have we covered everything, which is perfectly fine too. I just want to be sure to give you the chance.
Yeah. I guess the main one is really just do it, especially for the new folks. Like even maybe it was today, I even saw someone like, got my call for signing up, like go for it, get that next step, always be going for the next step, because I'll never forget. I was in an Uber ride to an airport, and the guy's like, "Oh yeah, I sell on Amazon a little bit." And this is way like years ago, pre-pandemic. And I was like, "Man, that sounds great," because I was like always interested in finding another business that I could attach to and get going. And I was like, "Man, wonder what that means," But now that they know, they've been in your community, they've watched some videos, they're signing up for Amazon, they're getting their Seller Central account going. Like, always be taking that step forward. Because I guess that's where I was headed. I was that person, like, what does it look like? Like, I wonder if I could make money from it. I wonder if I could support my family. And that's the blessing. Like, I was just my why at the time was like, I got to replace my income, because my income's about to go away really fast. And so I was driven to make sure my family didn't feel a bump in the road. And we are so blessed to where we've not felt a bump in the road. When some people have massive job changes, you feel it, So, just reiterating what I said earlier is just keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward. You'll get there. You will do it. I did it. If I can do it, it's one of those, it feels a little cheesy to say, if I can do it, you can do it. But it really is funny to be here and being a guest on a podcast about selling on Amazon and, having a platform to encourage people. Like like I wouldn't have thought I would have gotten this far this fast. So
yeah, well, you're doing great.
Something
you're
people
doing
can do.
Great.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
What's your goal for the upcoming year? Just, and maybe you've set one, maybe you haven't, but if you just had to kind of project the trajectory of the path you're on, and I kind of know what number I would probably throw at your scenario based on what you've told me, a rough number, but what do you think you're going to do in the upcoming year? What do you set your eyes on?
Well, I mean, the first hurdle is like a short-term goal will be to hit 40. That's the one goal. And I'm trying to hit that in January, because my new part-timer, he's a hungry guy too. He's like, are you motivated by money? So I can motivate you by money. If you help me hit 40, you'll find a financial reward too. Like, well, I'll take care of you. So he's like, let's do it. Come on, let's go. And we found some great wholesale stuff, from a distribution side. So we've kind of we expanded our product line. So I feel like we can do that easily. Long term into next year, the full year, numbers wise, it would be awesome to do $1 million. to do, at least just on Amazon. I think for my overall business, I think I've probably added 500,000, I would say, gross. But if I kept Amazon aside, as a separate entity, I would say I'd love to do $1 million there, and I'd love to do $1 million in t-shirts, or even if the t-shirt side shrinks a little bit, and it just kind of hits more of a cruising altitude, I could focus on Amazon and get the $1 million going on that side. That would be a goal. And then, I feel like I'm probably 3 people short right now. So building the team up to 3 or 4 people by the end of the year would be another goal too, as far as structure and, getting the infrastructure built up.
Maybe add a virtual assistant in there.
Yeah. And that is even another one too. Rich talked about that a little bit, but there's just so many opportunities. Like, man, I feel like I've got to, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? I feel like I'm like, so let's chew these sections, but yeah, virtual assistants definitely down the road. Definitely getting on the wholesale train, getting, reaching out, finding some people. And I've already done a few of items that I've already been selling, like, hey, let's bypass the retail side and go right to the manufacturer. So I've done that on a few items, and some success, some, not so, welcome, but, you just keep going. You don't let it bother you. So there was a few things at the beginning where I took it personally, and that's obviously, goes back to that, not letting it phase you, make sure you just keep persevering. But, and even that inventory shrink for the FBA side was just like, oh man, I wonder if this is really even going to work, So, just making sure those things don't bring me down. I keep just moving forward. And it's like, well, until it stops, we'll just keep going, until there's not enough room. Then we figure out maybe we'll just move to FBM for a while, And that was actually on my plate for a bit until the touring side really cranked up this fall. I mean, I had 4 or 5 clients out on the road at the same time. So it was just like, wow, well, I guess that side's moving now. So yeah.
Well, you mentioned the FBA inventory shrink, and just for the listener's sake, Amazon will sometimes limit how much stuff you can send in, which means if you want to sell more than that, you got to sell it yourself. When something sells, you got to ship it from your home. And when you're on the road, you can't do that. But as you start to grow a team, maybe have someone who does the prepping and the shipping for you, store it at their house, a neighbor, something like that, slowly grow your team. There's no reason you can't hit the kind of numbers that you're talking about. I love your projecting $1 million for the coming year. It sounds very realistic. Now that you know the basics, it's just about building your system. And I think the struggle for all of us at every stage is always, I find myself doing this. I think this is the value of taking a day off a week too, by the way, for me, is these things kind of sort themselves in my head without me thinking about it even. Just kind of sorts like, here's all the things I know I could be doing for my business, but which are the ones that I should be focusing on next? Those kind of float to the top when we step away from it, right? We take that day off. And I know, at least for me, that's the way it works. I kind of come in Monday with more clarity after I've taken Sundays off. And like, okay, these are the 4 things going to the top of the list. I'm going to pound away at these. Working on my business instead of buried in the details, stepping back.
Exactly.
Who am I going to hire next? Which project is up next? That sort of thing. So it sounds like you're on a good track, man. Sounds like you're on a real good track.
Well, I'm trying. Yeah. And I just to respond to that too. I mean, I always love your analogy of, shoveling coal. I mean, I'm putting some sweat equity into it now, but I want to get up and start steering the ship soon. I'm getting my back's tired. I'm not 22 anymore.
Right.
Lifting boxes, emptying trucks, loading pallets, moving stuff around. It's still keeps me healthy and keeps me moving, but is it the best thing for the business? No, but 1 year in, it's kind of a necessity just to kind of assess what the need is. And then, because I always love to be able to do every part of the business and then hand it off so I can actually say, hey, I've done that. This is the way I did it. You might want to if you find a different way to do it, it's more effective, more, more just, you can do it quicker. You tell me, we'll work through it. And if it doesn't work, we'll just go back the way I did. But anyways, all I'd say, just, I've always loved to put my hands on everything and then hand it off. So that's one way I'd love to do it too. So,
yeah. And that's smart. And it's necessary. Ensuring that the process enough that as you scale. But the thing I think some of us do, different personality types, is it's hard for us to let go of things, even things like putting tape on boxes. I mean, I know people who worked in this industry for 20 years and they still put all the tape on their own boxes. And that's a very limiting, one of my themes for many years was, you've got to step away from the tape, put down the tape gun. You got to step back. because it tells me you're not working on your business. You're working in it. You're buried in the details. You got to step back, hire somebody, even if they don't put the tape on as straight as you did. That's okay.
Yeah.
Them doing it at 80% is better than you doing all of it at 100% all the time, because they'll eventually get better at it than you ever were, because they won't be distracted. That's all they do. So yeah, growing your team is going to be a pretty vital thing for you. And I think you've got a good mentor there in Rich as well, because he's a master at, okay, now that I got a system, who am I going to hand this to? And because I'm going away for 3 weeks with my family, someone but it needs to run this thing. He just thinks that way naturally. And so he's a good mentor to have in your corner for sure on those. But well, it's been great hanging out with you, John. Really insightful. I enjoyed our conversation, and I think the listeners got a lot out of it as well. I'm sure they did, actually. So very encouraging. Time well spent, man. But so anything else before we start to wrap this one up? Anything left on your list?
No, just a huge thanks to you and what you've created here and how you steward it so well. And just a huge thanks. Yeah. Just for having this program. And, it's been a blessing to me and my family. So thank you.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, you're welcome. And thank you. And I love that word stewardship too, by the way. It's very tempting for me to go off on a little mini lesson, but I'm not going to do it. Leave it at that. I take stewardship very, very seriously. And perhaps the best way to sum it up is, none of this is mine. This stuff here in my office, the microphone, the success, it's all being stewarded temporarily. It belongs to someone else. I'm going to give it all back at some point. That's as a believer. And, that probably resonates with those of us who understand what I'm saying there, but just a different level of motivation when you see it as this is property that belongs to another. I'm going to steward it. And to the degree that I'm faithful with that, that's the only place in scripture we see well done, good and faithful servant, by the way, is that parable of the talents. Right. Is well done, good and faithful, good stewarding. That's the word talent. So I love that word, man, but I'll stop it there. So tell your wife, thank you for loaning you to us for a while. I really appreciate that, man. Here we are just a few days out from Christmas. Everybody's got busy schedules. And I even delayed this today on you. So thanks for that, man. But
oh, no worries. Yeah, it worked out great. Yeah.
Yeah, good to hear it. And I'll talk to the listeners for just a second and just thank you guys for hanging out with us as well. Just another great example of some of the really incredible people that are in this community, that are part of this group that's been formed, this culture that's kind of risen up. And John and I had a lot of things in common and we talked it through today, but there's got to be a group of people that you could be hanging out with. Maybe it's John and maybe it's others. Look up your city. I want to encourage you in our group. If you go to the welcome message in our Facebook group, there's a link to it at Silent Gym if you're not in there yet. But there's a link you can click and see who lives near you that is a fellow business building warrior, a listener to this podcast, people building e-commerce businesses, using Amazon, using the internet creatively. Start to make some relationships. I felt prompted to kind of share that with you today and encourage you guys to do that because you'll find yourself in some pretty incredible relationships. And as John shared today, those have been vital to kind of helping him get through the rough stages that life has thrown at him, these relationships, the people he's meeting. It's worth your time to invest in those and spend some time with people who see the world as being full of opportunity, because that's important right now. But we're coming up on Christmas. This episode may be after Christmas, so I should be saying Happy New Year probably by the time you hear this. But for my buddy John, it's coming up on Christmas for us. So Merry Christmas, John, to you and your family.
Christmas. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Likewise. And to all the listeners out there who've hung out with us today, God bless you guys. We're in your corner. We're rooting for you. We're here for you. If you have questions, we've got plenty of free resources. Listen to a few of these podcast episodes. Jump into our free Facebook group. Surround yourself with good people. That's probably the best advice I can give you to make yourself successful at any endeavor. So until next time, until we have another great episode, I'm going to sign off here and we will talk to you then.